Misspelled Wezol. Vlog life. Yeah.
Yo guys, welcome to a new explaining video. And this time I'm going to explain how I made One More Day, our latest release, which came out on Spinnin' yesterday.
Hold on for one more day.
So to start things off, maybe it's cool to tell you guys how this collaboration came about. So a couple of months ago I got this email from Harry, aka Ivian, and he told me that he had this project where he used a sample from the Wilson Phillips Hold On, which was a huge 90s hit. And he sent that project to Spinnin', and Spinnin' liked the sample but didn't really like the track that was surrounding that sample. So Spinnin' then in their turn sent me an email asking if I could make a new track around that sample. And the sample was already replayed, so that was a big plus, and I really liked the sample. So I said, let's go!
Someday somebody's gonna make you wanna turn around and say goodbye. Until then, baby, are you gonna let him hold you down and make you cry? Don't you know, it can change.
So as you can hear, the original sample and the original song by the Wilson Phillips is on a very low BPM. It's on a 96.76 beats per minute or something. So naturally, when we go ahead and pitch it up to a dance kind of BPM, you can immediately hear the problem that I had with it.
Someday somebody's gonna make you wanna turn around and say goodbye.
Yes, it's very rushed. It goes way too quick. These phrases right here.
Oh, one more day, things will go your way.
Things are going your way is what that's supposed to be, but you can't hear it at all. So the first thing I did before I even started a project with this sample is rewarp it in Ableton. Another problem that I had with the sample is that it's in F major. And as probably everyone knows, most dance music is not written in a major key, but in a minor key. Now you have this thing called the Camelot wheel, which is this circle right here, and what it can do for you is it can tell you what major keys sound good with a minor key. So in this case, F major sounds good with D minor. So naturally I wanted to change the tones of the sample to something that would fit into a D minor song. So that's what I started to do right here. I just imported all the separate vocal stems and started working with that, just melodyning the shit out of every single one of them.
Someday somebody's gonna make you wanna turn around and say goodbye. Someday somebody.
Anyway, that's all I had to do with the sample beforehand. Let's go to an actual project now. Normally I gather a lot of ideas, but with this project I just went with the first thing that came to mind, and that resulted in yeah, it's not really a Wezol track, Misspelled Wezol track. It's, yeah, okay, let's just listen, you can hear it yourselves.
Someday somebody's gonna make you wanna turn around and say goodbye. Until then, baby, are you gonna let him hold you down and make you cry? Don't you know, it can change. Things will go your way if you hold on. Can you hold on?
Suddenly rave sounds.
Hold on for one more day.
Now that is way different. So I finished this version up and I learned a few valuable things, and that is that the rave sounds don't really fit with the original sample at all. So in my next project with the sample I should go for more of an acoustic approach. So this is the idea project, and in this project I just started gathering a lot of ideas, only piano ideas, only acoustic ideas. So I stripped down the entire break, or at least all its melodic elements.
Hold on for one more day.
And then this bit is where I started just jamming and seeing what I could come up with. So let's listen to a few of those ideas.
Hold on for one more day. Hold on for one more day.
Pretty cool idea, I think. What's next? What I found out when I was making these piano melodies is that normally you can just make up a melody in your head pretty easily, right? But when it's a piano melody, you gotta deal with chords, of course. And I don't know about you guys, but I can't imagine chords in my head. So the most important thing when I was trying to create these melodies was the placement of the chords. And that's where I always started out with. So if we go to this melody, for example, the first thing I did was draw down the chords, and then after that I started drawing in these little notes in between. This is not a really good example, maybe this one. Ah, yeah, this is a better example. Because the chords, you can't really imagine those chords, but you can imagine these kind of things, these small melody lines. So that's how I went about creating these melodies. That's a really cool idea, I think. I'm definitely gonna use that somewhere, someday. Ah, you can really hear the birth of the final idea here. Almost there. And there you go, that's the final idea right there, or almost. Anyway, when I got this melody, I started a new fresh project with that note information. And let's just start up that one. So of course this wouldn't be a Wezol project if I hadn't used every single bit of RAM memory and used every single percentage of CPU power. And I had to pay the price, unfortunately. I hope it loads. Because it's been giving some trouble. Ooh, yes, there we go. Our first crash. While this project is loading, I actually got a question on my last vlog, and someone asked me what I do to deal with deadlines. And personally, I am a really big procrastinator, and because I do that, I always give myself like fake deadlines. I have this program called Evernote. I can load it up real quick here. Actually not sure if you guys should see this, but always on every Monday I write down what I think, or when I think certain projects need to have a first version. And that way I have something to work towards. Set deadlines for yourself, even if they're fake, they're definitely going to improve your the speed of your workflow. Anyway, the final project. So actually in the intro you can hear small bits of the original track by the Wilson Phillips, like this guitar, or wait, this guitar, and this fill right here. That's all from the original song. I just put that in there as like a small detail for everyone who knows the original track. So what I can maybe tell is this thing I call reverse effects. And it's a very common thing, but not so long ago I had a producer in the studio here, and he never used that. Whenever he used effects, he always used them like this, you know, just to kind of make a transition between two bars. But what I do with these reverse effects is, instead of putting emphasis on the transition, I put emphasis on the element that is coming just before the transition to the next couple of bars. So I just put this into its own separate effect slot, which is completely dry. As you see, no reverb, just some sidechaining and some EQing. And what it does in this case, it puts all the emphasis on the drum element, which is here, and that is in this case a reverb clap. So let's just listen to it soloed. And I use that all the time. I use it here, I use it just before the drop as well, along with some low end as well to make it sound extra sucky. It's there to give this slide, this bass slide, even more emphasis than it already has. So in the intro there's this vocal delay going on. It's right here. And as you can see, I just looped the delay over and over again. And the original sample is an actual rendering of a delay. But because I always think that delays are really hard to control, I do my delays a little bit different. Let's say, for example, I want this vocal to be delayed throughout the intro of the song or something. And what I then do is I use a recording device to actually record the delay. So I record that baby and I put it back into the project, and then I just simply loop a small bit of it. And that way I can manually control the volume, the filtering, anything. And that's just something I really miss with a lot of delay plugins. They're really hard to control. So that would be a tip as well if you're a control freak like me. Just render out your delays and do everything manually. So next up is the break bass right here. And if we listen to that, you can hear that it's a really real sounding bass guitar. So what I did for that bass guitar is I just wrote down the melody that I wanted for the bass guitar, and after that I just loaded up some bass guitar samples. I just loaded up a few of those samples. I pitched them and I worked with them till they had the melody that I wrote. You can really hear all the bass guitar strums and the human mistakes that are in there, and that really gives the bass guitar a realistic vibe. Like those little bits, for example. Like I said before, I really wanted to keep the break as acoustic as possible, so that break bass, that bass guitar really helps with that. So this is all the note information we got from the earlier project, the Idea project. And for the build-up I used two different pianos. I have this one, which is true pianos. And then I also have another one which was Contact, but which I now resampled because of CPU issues. Together, that's this. And I actually used the same trick here as I used in the remix I did for Gramercy Sparks, because this melody also starts up high with some effects over it, and when it drops down low. It actually drops down one octave, and that's what's giving it a lot of its power, I think. Another important thing, I think, for the power of the drop is this vocal going down at the end. If you'd use the the original sample, where it goes up, it would sound really unfinished, if you know what I mean. So this is what it would sound like with the original vocal on it.
Hold on for one more day.
It doesn't work, it needs to go down there, so that's why I melodined that bit. That's the build-up, I think. I did the same trick with the bass guitar here, by the way. Let's move on to the drop. So in the drop I also have two pianos working with each other. And we have main piano 2. And I think main piano 1 is a multi-sampled piano from somewhere, and this is through pianos. So of course there's a lot of variations going on in the piano throughout the whole drop. For example, right here, just before the new section comes in, there's some extra notes, these notes, and that's this variation right here. And then again, in the end, there's a slightly different variation going on, and that is this variation right here. The bass sound is a sound which is made up of 5 different sounds. We have a sub bass, a main bass 1, a bass overlay, and 2 lead sounds. All the sounds except for the main bass 1 are only there to give extra, some extra body to the main bass. So what's also pretty cool about the bass line, I think, or cool, it's actually weird, but this keyboard controller is controlling the filtering of the main bass with its velocity, as you can see here. And if we listen to the main bass on its own, you can hear that it's really weird, you know, the filtering does some really weird stuff here. But I simply had to do that because the high frequencies of the bass were getting a little bit out of hand. If you listen to the bass in the track, in the mix, you can't really hear that filtering going on right there. You can't really hear that, and I think that's because all the other sounds of the bass are kinda catching up that loss of frequencies right there. But yeah, that was just a weird solution of a mixing problem. I really wanted to keep the drop interesting after those first 15 seconds. What I added there in the end is this vocal chop right here.
Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know? Don't you know?
But before I went with those vocal chops, I actually had a couple of different ideas, like this guitar here, which is a variation of the guitar I used in the break. So I thought that was pretty cool, but it was just getting way too hectic, way too much stuff going on. And the same thing happened with this other idea, which I thought was really cool as well. So again, really cool ad, I think, but unusable because it was too crowded. So I just went with this really simple add-on. And then also there's some open hi-hats being added, like this one, or I rendered it out. It's this one right here. So this is being added as well. And that's actually the whole drop. It's just a couple of variations in the piano, a couple of variations in the bass, and then some drum elements and a vocal being added after 15 seconds. So yeah, I think that's everything I can tell about this project. I've shown you the process, I've shown you all the separate ideas I gathered. You've seen the drops, you've seen the break. That's it. I think that's it. If you haven't bought the track yet, and if you like it, please support us by buying it on Beatport or iTunes or whatever. Yeah, you can really help us get up into the charts, and that will be sweet. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any suggestions for the next explaining video. Drop them down in the comments and I can take those suggestions with me in the next video. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you later.